Right, well, thanks everyone for coming today. I'm Monica Polshaw. Most of you probably know me, but I work for the National Agricultural Library and lead the I5K workspace genomics project for insects. I'm also part of the AgBioData steering committee. And we invited a bunch of you personally and others just generally to join us for today's roundtable discussion on phenotype and phenotypic data. So I appreciate everyone coming to join us. And I'm here to give you some background about what we're doing and why we're doing it, just to set the tone for the larger discussion that's going to happen today. All right, so just briefly what we're going to do, I'm going to give a background that's probably going to be less than 10 minutes actually. And then we're going to go into breakout rooms. So we're going to separate you all out into smaller groups to have discuss a series of questions that I think we've primed you all with already. So hopefully it should be somewhat familiar what we're going to talk about, but we'll go over that too. We're going to ask each of these breakout groups after the discussion to come back and give just a short 2 to 3 minute report, depending on the number of breakout groups that we have. I think we'll be okay. So we all know where our conclusions went from our discussion. And then we hope to take away from those reports where we're going to go in terms of phenotypic data challenges for AgBioData databases in particular, perhaps with a working group or other ideas from that too. Okay, so our goals today, first we want to describe challenges for AgBioData databases in regards to phenotypic data. I'm emphasizing databases because phenotypic data is broad and diverse, and there are lots of challenges associated with it. And we could probably spend years just discussing all of the different sorts of problems that one can have with it. And since we're AgBioData and one of our goals is to actually help streamline processes and standard procedures for the databases to able to serve our customers better, we were going to try to focus our discussion and possibly a working group on the challenges specifically for the databases and other IT resources that AgBioData comprises. Once we've gone through that, we've want to identify the most pressing challenges among the ones that we've described. I'm sure there'll be many, but which ones are relevant and feasible and would actually provide value to provide a solution for. And then finally, what we'd like to eventually get out of this is to see if we have the stuff for a working group for our 3rd year of the RCN grant. So with that, I'll give a little bit of background about why we think this discussion is important and why we're setting this up. So I think we all sort of know, even if we're working with phenotypic data or not, that the curation, storage, and access and sharing of phenotypic data can present challenges for databases. And we've noticed over the past year or two that this is really the case for several AgBioData databases. Here's how we know this. So in last year, I know in AgBioData, we tend to send out a ton of surveys. And one of those was the AgBioData Data Federation and Ontologies survey. And I was part of the Data Federation working group at the time. And we noticed for one of our questions that 7 out of the 38 databases stated that phenotypic and phenomic data are still challenging to share. So that was one thing that keyed us into maybe this is a problem specifically for these 7 databases, but possibly others that didn't mention it. I think this question actually, it was unprompted. It was just general, like, what do you have trouble sharing? And people said phenotypic data. So sharing both from their databases and to other databases. So that's one reason. The other clue that we got is that another survey that we asked for you all last year, we were calling for working group proposals. And 5 of the proposals that we received addressed challenges or phenotypic and phenomic data, at least in part. And we actually, when Anarita and I were going through the proposals, we struggled a bit because there was overlap between a lot of the proposals in terms of the types of questions and challenges they wanted to address. And we thought, next year it would probably be good if we tackled phenotypic data directly through a discussion like this, just to make sure that we actually strategically think about phenotypic data and maybe think of one working group instead of 5 that sort of tangentially address the same problem in slightly different ways. So yeah, there's clearly a need to address challenges with phenotypic data. The challenges are diverse based on what we've heard from surveys and from those working group proposals. And our question is, can we as a group identify a topic that as a working group we can address and provide a decent solution for at least some of the AgBioData databases that we have here. So we decided to set up this discussion, but before we were going to do it, we wanted to know a bit more about challenges. And so we did this informal assessment. Thank you to everyone who answered our emails, who we reached out to about this. I see a bunch of you here today. So we asked 14 databases what phenotypic data they curated, stored, or accessed, and what challenges they experienced with phenotypic data. And we learned the following main concerns from the eight respondents that we received. So there's a diversity in data types for phenotypic data. It seems like there's images and there's stuff that you put into a database, into a table, and that stuff can be pretty diverse in terms of what it is, but also its source. So where do you get the data from? Is it from breeders that you interact with? Is it from researchers that you are yourself, or from other databases, or from other scientists? Are you curating it from the literature? And we think that all of those different data sources can present different problems for structuring that phenotypic data in a database. Standardization. So it's challenging to integrate trait observations across species, field trials, et cetera, due to lack of ontologies or CVs, controlled vocabularies that need to be used to describe phenotypes, at least in some part. And in terms of image data, there's still the lack of a centralized database to share that plant image data. I think some AgBioData databases store image data, but not many, and not all for sure. So with those results, we kind of knew that these were sort of topics that we want you all to discuss and address, and you'll see that reflected in our discussion questions here. Thanks again to everyone who responded to those. So when we go into breakout rooms, we want you to briefly just warm up with the following questions, and just participants, please do that, but try to keep it brief, because there's 30 minutes total. So what database do you work for or use, if you're a database provider or a data provider? Does your database store, curate, or access phenotypic data? And if so, please describe it. And what are 1 to 3 challenges that your database faces regarding phenotypic data? Then we have a couple of questions that were directly motivated by the responses we got from those email responses from y'all. So how relevant are these issues, which is standardization or ontologies? And we'll give all of you these questions later, right? So you don't need to remember them right now. Data type diversity, data source diversity, and lack of a centralized database. So those things that I mentioned in the previous slide. Then based on your discussion, what challenges do you think we can address completely or partially with a working group? So we're asking for some advice on what you think would be a good working group topic. Or, does another group actually already, is this problem solved somewhere else and we just need to think about it a little bit differently, that kind of thing. What other groups can we connect with? And then finally, sort of a recruitment ask, so would you be interested in joining such a working group if established? And would you be interested or would know anybody who we should recruit to be a chair or a champion for that working group? All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Anna-Rita, who's going to tell us how we're going to do the breakout rooms.
Yeah, so I actually think according to the number of people, we will have 4 breakout rooms. So you will be assigned automatically. So when I open them, you will be in one breakout room. The breakout room are simply named by breakout room 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to also share the Google Drive, where there are the Google Docs for your notes. So please, so just sign as usual that we do at AgBioData, in case you have participated in other events with us. Each breakout room should have a host, which is someone that moderates the discussion, a scribe, but if you want to all collaborate in taking notes, that is up to you guys. And then there is also a reporter, so someone that will report about the discussion with 2-3 minutes talk at the end. So please put the name in the notes. And there is also a table where you can add your name and tell us if you will be interested in a follow-up email, and if we create a working group on phenotypic data. And so with the, I think I will be here in the main room in case you need help and support, but I'm going to open the room. So according to the number of the room where you are assigned, please go in the Google Drive folder and enter in the Google Note, the Google Doc that has the same number of your breakout room. With this, I will open.
And Arita,
Yes.
will we get a time warning?
Yes, yeah,
I know we get these conversations and it's like we're right in the middle of stuff, and then it's like,
yes.
oh, 1 minute left, and everyone's like, ah.
Yeah, no, I will send a reminder 10 minutes and 5 minutes.
Awesome. Okay,
and then 1 minute. So you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, sure.
I
yes.
have a comment. Yeah. So if you are making notes for those questions that Monica has shared, so please write your name and then your institute affiliation, yeah, in the bracket, so that we can contact you later. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna open the room. Good luck. I hope the discussion was okay. No worries if you couldn't answer all the questions. I saw that there are so many good input that will be all very useful for us, so no pressure. So I think we can start with the report. I'm just gonna invite the reporter to be as short, like within the 2-3 minutes max top, okay? So the first one is Breakout Room 1, and I think is Jackie. So Jackie, you can unmute and talk. Oh, you are in, oh no, you are 2, yes, sorry. It's Nick, the first one.
Nick Gladman from Breakout Room.
Yes, sorry, Nick.
All right. So very plant-centric room. So one of the things that kept coming up in terms of question 1 were some of the challenges that we had were manual creation is time consuming. It requires a lot of human resources to do it. So those are kind of standard challenges. Scalability when we're dealing with high throughput data sets or dealing with those in a curation aspect, again, it's becoming sort of a bottleneck. Lack of existing databases with robust standards and data models. Standardization, especially metadata, is becoming more and more of an issue that we're concerned about, and of course quality control and quality standards when we're dealing with that. And one of the other kind of notes that came up were, in what is the purpose of the collection of the phenotypic data that we as a community are generating? Is it purposeful for a specific intent, or is it intended for just curation, accumulation, and then one day it might be useful? So it's that kind of mindset as well as a community that we have. And going on to question 2, how relevant are the issues for database in terms of phenotypic data? Basically, we thought that every single one of these is somewhat relevant. The prioritization that we gave for these, if you were looking at the notes, were basically it was kind of a split between the first 2 points as which one was the biggest priority that we should deal with. Either it's a lack of standardization or data type diversity causes some problems, and then kind of split for the last 2 points. So we believe those are big issues, but it's kind of to the preference of each individual community about which one might take the biggest cheese. And then for the final point, based on discussion, what are the challenges that we think we can address? It seems difficult. I think the biggest takeaway was it seems kind of daunting as to make a change as a community-based organization without trying to engage, some kind of top-down aspect, whether it's publishers or databases themselves that house it. And to that point, it requires a bit more discussion, I think. And I'll finish my report there.
Thank you, Nick. So I think now it's the time of Jackie, but she said she will be right back. Are you back, Jackie? Otherwise,
Doesn't look like it. Yeah.
I think we can move to Breakout Room 3. And the reporter is Emily.
Okay, so it seems like one of the consistent challenges across almost everyone is the diversity in phenotype data, although most people so far mostly we're dealing with textual data, not so much image data yet, but it's a couple people are planning for that and sort of anticipating that. And there can be, so my group particularly has with data coming from many, many different groups and standardizing that so that it all talks to each other. And Suk mentioned high throughput data and differences between like sensors or brands. So that is not, I was sort of imagining that that would all be more standardized, but it does not seem to be. Okay, and then for two, our biggest challenge is what I mentioned already. We talked a little bit about how people are using ontologies and how people choose what actually goes into their database. For question 3, we did not get to spend a lot of time on that, but one of the things that Suk brought up is that she would love to see a working group take the challenge of image-based phenotype data.
Thanks, Emily. I think we can go to breakout room 4 because Jackie is not back yet, which I believe is doing.
It's me. So I'm going to jump in and say we covered the space that's been mentioned previously. We were predominantly a plant-based group, and the people worked on everything from controlled vocabularies, genomics, and breeding resources. That we also brought up the struggle of community and common standards for vocabularies and ontologies, that we also had the issue for heterogeneity associated with the group, and that one of the other discussion points that was coming up of what is the phenotype of your data? Are you curating the downstream analysis of a QTL or a GWAS, which many people were doing? Or in the case of GRIN, are you curating the primary data sets of the actual scores associated with a germplasm and a trait of interest? And that the control vocabularies or the trait vocabularies that people were using were different depending upon whether it was different breeders all use different ones, researchers use different things than breeders, and maybe companies might use different things than what the academic community uses. We actually didn't get to discuss question 2, but we covered it in most of the discussions that we have. And then we kind of jumped to number 3 and only spent 3 or 4 minutes of it on it. But really, one of the things that we brought up is, can we come up with a common denominator on how we can get the community to share and contribute to controlled vocabularies? One of the persons in the notes mentioned, can we work with open science and commercial providers to try to get high throughput equipment or things to use some standard methods or contribute to the development of that? So that would be an approach that we could use to that. We also talked about that there were other groups that are working on some of the high throughput phenotyping, very specifically the genome to fields, I know, has been working on that. And then very specifically an individual, Seth Murray, who's been working on this, that if we do decide to tackle that, we should be one of the people that participates. Also, that one of the people already participating in our working group, Sarah Dreyer, recently received an award from NSF to work on GWAS associated data storage, and that she could be part of this working group as well. Also, the CGIRs are working on common vocabularies, and maybe we could make sure that there was a person from the CGIR here, and then also somebody from the Global Trust, Diversity Trust. Anybody else? I missed anything? Speak up.
So great. Well, these are very great suggestions of people to reach out. So thank you so much. So I think, Jackie,
our breaking group, actually, there was one person from CGIR, Sudhanshu, I think. See, he is from CGIR.
Oh, no, I said NCG.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So I think Jackie cannot report. So I'm asking anybody else.
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna just sort of offer to just, I think almost everything that has been covered by every other group was discussed in our group. Ours was a mix of some people working in both plants and animals, and again, the variety of data types, GWAS, QTL, low throughput individual phenotype data, and so on. I don't know if I had teens in the background making noises, so I don't know if somebody mentioned the issue that kind of came up for us was also around like private data, and that plant breeders have a whole bunch of data that they may not share because they're active research breeding programs, but also that there's a lot of data like ancillary data from breeding programs that have sort of ended that could be made available, but it's not. So sort of that was another aspect of the phenotypic data diversity that presented a particular challenge. And there were people were sort of divided on the value of sort of a centralized database versus really meeting the needs and the specific vocabularies and issues of individual communities. And again, I don't know if this was sort of raised, but also the importance of understanding what the community needs. If we're sort of thinking about how the data is to be used, that we need to sort of think about how to design systems to enable people to ask the kinds of questions that are people being the researchers, to ask the kinds of questions that are most important to them. So sorry, that was flying by the seat of my pants and not looking at the notes too much.
Thank you, Leonard. So it was great. So is there anything else that anybody of you wants to add? We are almost at the hour, so we did a great job. So thank you so much for joining. And so is there anybody else that wants to add anything to the discussion? No, it's
I'm just
So go ahead, John.
I'm just typing into the chat the two things that many of you are aware of, but if you're not, the Office of Science and Technology and the White House directives on depositories and management of federally funded data. And the message is take a look at those and get involved. They're just getting started on setting the guidelines. So when you look at what the agencies have to do and what they need to do for data management, I mean, it reads exactly what we want to do. So take a look at that and see if there's a way you can provide input into that.
Thank you, John. Doreen, we have 1 minute left, so you are muted.
I just want to throw this out there, and people might get mad at me, but I think the concept of a one centralized database is almost obsolete. If you look at where human is going, it's a concept of federation. And so this is where the key for the standards and the formats of exchanges and APIs to support those activities, I think, are really critical, and we should keep that in mind as we start to think about things.
Thank you, everybody. So I want also to thank Sunita and Monica because they helped me organizing this. And so we will look at the note and try to come up with a decision. It seems that there are many people interested in a potential working group, but I think we need to really define the focus since it will be 1 year working group. But I think there is plenty of input to do that. So thank you so much for joining. And for those that are interested, in case there will be a working group, we will follow up with you guys. Thank you so much.